So the first song on Graveyard Shift is Rats, and I think it's a rather interesting way to begin an album, but I really wanted a song that was going to hit really fucking hard as the first track. I love on all the previous albums, first tracks, we've done pretty much that, and for me, Rats embodies what I love most about Immaculate Misconception, starting off Creatures. It just fucking slams when it comes in and immediately sets a tone for what's to follow. I think the music to this song reminds me of how I felt about Death March, in that, yes, it has a lot of elements and sounds that are found throughout all the genres of music, but as far as one band and one song that uses them in this particular way, I don't really know what other bands you could compare Death March or Rats to. I think it's just a perfect example of what I mean when I say we found our sound on Reincarnate and Graveyard Shift is like a refined version of that sound. What a better way to start off an album than with a track that continues to brand our identity and just hits much like I said, Immaculate Misconception and Death March hit, just so fucking powerful and so hard right off the bat. I worked on the music to the song with my friend Tom Hain, who is a great writer and producer. I flew to Chicago to a studio, and it was actually the first song that was completely finished musically for Graveyard Shift. Ricky and I had started the music to Hourglass long before this, but this was the first song that was actually completed start to finish musically for the album. My favorite part musically of this track is definitely the super stompy bridge middle section. When I was writing the guitar part for it, I was originally trying to make it more of like a traditional breakdown like we've done before a million times, throughout all of our songs. And Tom was like, dude, you gotta have like the 4 on the floor over that instead, or just like the stompier beat rather than more of a breakdown type of vibe. And we tried it, and I was like, holy fuck. It was like the heaviest thing I've ever heard. I honestly think that it's the heaviest musical part of any Motionless song ever. I just remember listening back over and over when it was done, and I was like, dude, this is for sure going to be the opener to the album. And to look back, that was in January of 2016 that we were working on this song, and to see that it ended up opening the album, I think we definitely have a thing for starting an album out on like the kind of slower mover, more power songs. I think Black Damask was a great way to start Infamous on a little bit more faster note to pick up from Immaculate starting Creatures off, but it just seems like we have this affinity for the slow, heavy hitters to start an album out. And I think with Rats, what even helps it differentiate from the other songs I'm referring to is when I listen to it, it's just so fucking dirty and filthy, and there's something about it that really like sets a very interesting tone right off the bat as compared to the other songs I'm mentioning. I don't know, I just want to hear the song whether the vocals are on it or not. I think it's a really unique way to begin an album, and I think what makes it interesting that we chose this song to start the album off is more so the lyrics, not the music. Obviously, as we just discussed, the music makes a lot of sense, but lyrically, it's not something that we would typically want to start an album out with. But I guess in some way, it was cool because it was just something different for us that we'd never tried before. And I think a lot of people were either intrigued or very put off, or I guess a lot of people really enjoyed the lyrics because of the more upfront, vulgar nature that I think that they were promoting. To describe the lyrics and the meaning as best as I can, it's essentially about sexual liberation, and it's about not being ashamed of the quote-unquote unconventional things that people are into, and it's about challenging the taboos of sex in society these days. The story that I built throughout the song is about two people who have actually exposed themselves to one another and are indulging in their secret interests rather than feeling any sense of shame or fear, like I think most people would in these types of scenarios. I mean, just think about how many times someone has ever asked you what you're into, and there's that looming fear of rejection if you choose to tell them. Think about of all the people that are out there who are bound by some religious belief that tells them that it's shameful to participate in many sexual acts. Think of how many women are so often sexualized by our society, but then are immediately criticized and degraded for acting sexually when they choose to. Those are just a few examples of a million. And in the story here, both roles have completely shed themselves of those oppressions and burdens and are pretty much playing a game with one another in which they switch back and forth in being control of the situation and just generally embracing each other and their sexual nature to the fullest degree without any of that fear or shame that's typically attached to it. I really, really like the whole "Roses Are Red, My Heart Is Black" middle section of the song lyrically, but my favorite lyrics of the song are the "We feed ourselves lies to submit to the shadows because we just want to dance under our pretty perfect halos." God, so weird. It's so weird to spoken word them like that. I just think those two lines completely embody what the point of the song is in a more poetic way and really get the point across just in those two lines. Yeah, as I said, the song is just about sexual liberation and challenging all the terrible taboos of sex in our society these days.